Welcome. This is the first episode. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to make sure that In Practice starts out strong. I had a chance to sit down with a terrific musician and performer. He studied at the renowned College Conservatory of Music at the University of Cincinnati. He's been teaching for years and developed a great community around his school. I was actually a student at one time, and his love of music in a wide range of styles and his curiosity, they left a big impression on me as a musician to this day. So just to clear up a mistake, before we get into the interview, at one point we were talking about John McLaughlin. I mistakenly called his Apocalypse album Armageddon. So when you hear me being dumb, I meant Apocalypse. All right, our conversation covered a lot of ground, and it was a lot of fun for me to do. So please enjoy this first episode of In Practice with Nicholas Tuttle. So I'm sitting across from the lovely Nick Tuttle.
I just want you to love me.
Don't worry, they will. And it kind of looks like we're in a jam session right now because I sat down Nick and he was saying that he hasn't done many interviews and that he has a guitar in his hand because it's sort of like his security blanket. And this being my first interview for the show, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So there's one in my lap too.
Yeah.
And so we're both just sitting here and jamming in the key of A.
And I figured this is like how I got to know you, you know, hanging out and playing guitar.
Yeah.
It's like a very natural way for me to talk to you with guitars in my hands.
Yeah. I'm going to try this with other musicians too. This feels great.
Yeah.
All right. So just for the people at home, can you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Nick Tuttle and I'm a guitar teacher here in Cincinnati, Ohio at the Nicholas Tuttle Guitar Studio, and born and raised in Cincinnati. My mom is from South America, so I spent a lot of time in Colombia, and that stuff shows up in my music sometimes. So if you see me on the street and I look kind of swarthy and dark, that's, you know, you're wondering, no, where are you really from? That's the question you get. So yeah.
But yeah, so I know that last time I was here, I was talking about how I got into music and
At your master class.
At my master class,
Thank you very much for that, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Yeah, I was talking about how my dad was teaching me guitar back when I was a kid, and
you forgot about that.
And you brought up that you learned from your dad too, starting out.
You don't know this, but the guitar that you grabbed and that you're playing belonged to my dad.
What?
That's his guitar.
Wow, I'm honored.
Yeah, isn't that cool? It's nothing special, but it's cool that it was his. I'm sorry, I got cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So how did he start you out?
Really, just by my first memory on this earth is my dad playing that guitar for my mom. I remember orange shag carpet because it was like the late 70s. I remember a carved wooden tiger and an ottoman that was like built into the floor because that's what the hell. I mean, there was a lot of cocaine back then, I guess. So my mom sitting on the ottoman and my dad would play guitar for her. So that was like really my earliest memory. So just always was just kind of there. So it was, I guess you would say that was my identity immediately. So I was labeled a guitar player. I was branded a guitar player. You know, it was in my DNA before I could say words. So
early, you didn't have an identity before that.
Yeah, it was just like, here you are. This is what we do in this family. And
that is so cool. Was your dad a musician by trade?
Not by trade. Well, I mean, before he was married and stuff, you know, he had bands, and he was talking about this band he had called the Underground Sound, which he really, really had a lot of fun playing, like Hendrix stuff and like kind of the just like top 40 stuff of the day.
Yeah.
And he talked fondly about like playing gigs down at Moonlight Gardens over in Coney Island, which is like a really cool venue.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, you been there?
Yeah, I've been. I saw Humphreys there on 4th of July a couple years ago.
Yeah. That's an amazing venue, isn't it?
It's so cool, yeah. It looks almost like Cajun country, like it would be in New Orleans or something.
I guess like all the like touring bands, like Duke Ellington's band and stuff like that. And the Count would come through and they would always go through. That was a big place to go and see music and dance and stuff back in the day.
So cool. So your dad was putting a guitar in your hands, or did you just say, I want to be daddy? That looks so cool.
I don't know. He never forced music on me. It was the strangest thing. Like,
I guess, how are you not going to play an instrument if they're just around your house growing up?
Yeah, you know, it was, I think my dad, not to get too deep psychologically into it, but like, I think he had trouble communicating sometimes. But once he saw that, like, when you're a kid, that first time that you hear a song that you really like, mine was, I loved that Purple People Eater song when I was like, in first grade or something like that. And I loved, She's a Man Eater. God, I loved that song. I don't know why. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. You know the one?
I know that one, yeah.
Is it like Hall & Oates or something? I don't remember.
No, yeah, that is Hall & Oates.
So once he saw that I really started to get like excited about music the way that he's excited about music, it's like the first time we had an actual conversation, but it was without words. It was just like intense feelings about music. And then it was, hey, have you heard this or have you tried that? And he was really, all of that support and love showed up in how he helped me like obtain gear, like let me have what I want, like the stuff that I felt like I needed. When you're a teenager and you're like, oh, Fender Stratocaster, Fender Concert, this,
that's up on a pedestal.
Yeah,
for most kids. Yeah.
Well, and like he would help me obtain this stuff. He would buy these things for me. When you're a kid, like, I don't know, it's just something that your mom and dad do. They just provide physical things for you. And you don't realize, like, at the time, like, looking back on all of that gear, that's just, like everything he did to, like, help that side of me. That was like saying, man, I love that you love this the way that I do, and I want to encourage that side of you. It's a shame that, like, sentiments that big are lost on a teenage mind. And you don't really get to feel them until you're, like, 40.
But do you think you were maybe more open to big ideas like that? Because one thing that I've thought about, and this is the practice thing in general, is it's a pretty solitary thing. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of working by yourself. And it's a good time to turn over a lot of big ideas.
Yeah, here, we're going to have a guest.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Pumpkin. I'm here with Nate Newman. We're recording right now. I hope he keeps us in the podcast. What's up? Well, here. I'm going to put you on speaker so you can say hi to Nate.
Hi, Nate. How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
How do you feel about the internet being able to hear your voice?
I feel good about it.
Yeah.
The internet feels good, too.
Call me when you're done. You guys have fun.
Okay. All right. Should we put our shirts back on?
No.
Oh, okay. We're shirtless.
Right.
We're actually completely naked.
Yeah, like always. What did you say, Pumpkin?
Okay. I said, of course, when you're recording on the internet.
Oh, right.
Okay. I gotta go.
So, yeah, the solitary thing. I think that is actually just living. No matter how, I have a job where I see 50, 60 people a week. So you would think that I am the most social cat in the world. And maybe I am compared to other people. But there's still, like, at the end of the day, there's still plenty of time for introspection. And just, you are going to be alone with yourself a lot. And so I think when you start playing an instrument or really doing any kind of art super intensely, like, that is the great agitator of that relationship. Like, here it comes. I'm 12, I'm 13, I'm 14 years old. Why do I want to create? It's because you are trying to communicate with yourself. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, find out what's there.
Yeah. And I believe that that's why that stuff starts. Guitar just happens to be like, if you need a little catalyst, I feel like guitar is particularly potent. Just really, because it's cool, it's portable.
Mm-hmm.
You learn how to play it to talk to girls, and your favorite bands.
That didn't work for me.
It didn't work. I know. Yeah. I'm certain I started, for the whole girl thing, but it didn't work for me either. But yeah, man, I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for that dialogue to start, and it really hasn't stopped. It just happens in different keys. Like, here we are chatting on this podcast in the key of A, just exploring.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, because I was going to start out saying that your education was a lot more formal than mine, but it became that way at some point when you were at CCM and everything. But yeah. It sounds like you were always a musician and you came up this way with a guitar in your hand.
Sure.
Did your practice sort of come together naturally?
No, my practice didn't really come together. My current practice. I think what is important to us understand that, like, as you evolve as a person, as your life evolves, and you get jobs and kids and this and that, like, your practice has to evolve just like your life evolves. And it's something to keep healthy, like a plant, and you have to feed it different things and give it different light at different stages in its life. So in the early days, I hardly practiced at all. I was a typical kid. I just liked to play and create. I started writing songs at a really, really young age. And I had a couple bands. I had a band called the Tree Frogs all through high school.
Great name.
Yeah, we were the Tree Frogs. Man, it's the Colombian thing. Poison dart. And it wasn't until like I was like 17 and maybe 16 when people start asking you like, oh, what are you going to do for a living? And I'd always thought I was going to be like a psychologist or something lame like that. Even as a kid, I'm like, I think I'm going to be a psychiatrist.
For some reason that feels good, even when
it seems
if there's something special, it's like you should know I want to be a doctor or an accountant or something. Yeah.
But
not that there's anything wrong with either of those things.
Yeah.
But
doctors and accountants, fuck you guys. I was just obsessed with the guitar and obsessed with the fretboard. I was obsessed with the creation. I was obsessed with singing. And the only answer that could come out was like, I'm going to be a guitar player. I just didn't know what that looked like. Maybe for a moment I thought it was going to be like, I'm going to be a rock and roll musician, or I'm going to be on tour, or I'm going to do this or that. I think one of the things that was of benefit to me was just my concept was so vague. It's a little bit like just knowing where north is. Like, I don't really know where I'm at. I just know I'm supposed to walk that way. There was not like a path and there were no road signs. It was only a direction, like walking to a horizon that I was very certain was coming. I never thought in a million years I would end up, as a guitar instructor and a guy who like gigs on the like during the week. Like I don't know. Like I'm not cool enough to think that far ahead or to have that idea like, oh, what if this thing happens? What a great idea. It's functional, can help you pay the bills and you can meet a lot of people and, and continue to learn and grow for your whole life. There's no way that a 17-year-old kid can have a thought like that. So, it's enough to make you believe in other things, that you're on a path and it's okay to trust the path. And that if you, just like Anastasio says, like, get your damn hands off the song. Like, the beautiful improvisation comes in the form of like you not messing it up.
Yeah, like not to be possessive of where it's going.
Not to be possessive of where it's going. Just try to like relax and listen.
That's pretty scary for most people, actually.
That's because most people never try it. But
that's where all the great stuff is happening.
Yeah. I think, like I had to go for like my daily physical on Thursday and I'm terrified of doctors and stuff like that. And so I wish you could have been there, man. Like I haven't had like a shot since I was like 17.
Wow.
The doctor, Doc TJ, is like, yeah, we're going to give you 2 shots. And I'm like,
wow.
Oh,
if you're listening, people of the internet, this is hysterical because Nick is a straight Adonis.
I am Adonis.
Yeah. Yep. Just 7 feet tall and made of muscles.
Super brown, long black hair. So anyway, I'm sitting up on this table,
you're beautiful,
like in a ball, like, crisscross applesauce. And this cute little curly haired girl comes in and she's laughing. And I said, look, Kelly, I'm sure you can see that I am terrified. So like, let me just stay up here in this little ball and you can just do what you will with me. So I'm covering my eyes and she comes over and she's very sweet. She's saying like, okay, now this is just my hand and this is that. And then all of a sudden it was over. I said, are you done yet? She's like, yeah, we're done. And I didn't feel a thing. So I was, I think that's kind of analogous for everything that scares us. Yeah. Where that fear and terror comes in, I have no idea, but it is huge. It is potent. And I think there is so much power. I think there's so much power in, yes, be afraid, like let that be there and then do the thing. Like be afraid, let the thing happen and then see how you feel afterwards.
Yeah.
I felt great. And she was super cute.
See, everything works out.
Yeah. And then she gave me another shot in the left arm. I was like, are you kidding me? And then I had to give blood and it was blood work.
There's a lot of needles in your day.
Dude, it was like a goddamn nightmare. If you were to tell me that like, hey, on Thursday when you go for your physical because, you're 40 now and you got to start doing this stuff. And if you had said that there was going to be more than 1 needle, I would have been like, Nate, I've always loved you, man. You can find me in Colombia. I'm not coming back. But it was like 3 needles in like under 10 minutes. Wow. But here I am. I'm fine.
You made it.
And I feel like kind of giddy with happiness telling the story. Yeah, because it's not like a mild phobia for me, is it? It is like massive.
It's like hardcore?
Massive. Hardcore. Ever since I was a kid.
Wow.
It is a massive phobia, like almost debilitating.
I was going to say, because like the existential terror of not being master of your fate or something like that, nothing for you. You trust the universe, I feel like, but when it comes to a needle, like, hell no.
Yeah, I know. If the universe was a syringe, I'd be like, well, look, it's been nice. No, I do think that's a good way to put it. Trust the universe. I get that. I get that. Even, I think I've told you this story before, but even coming down here, that was trust. I was teaching before up in Mount Adams. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I think you told me about the old studio.
Yeah, and I had been up in Mount Adams for years. I'd lived up there since I was like 18, because I used to go up there because my sister was taking art classes at the Art Academy. And all I knew was that I loved Mount Adams and I was always going to be there. And so when I was old enough to have my own place, that was the first place I went. And I started playing at the Blind Lemon. I started teaching guitar lessons out of my little apartment up there, and moved around a couple times. And I had a really great place where I had 2 floors and I could just teach on the first floor and just like sleep upstairs. And my life was pretty good. And then the building where we were staying wasn't going to be available anymore. And so I had a very, very short time to figure out a place where I could live and a place where I could teach, where really like the only place that was acceptable to me was Mount Adams. That was the only place that was acceptable for me to like house the studio and house my life. But that was life saying, hey, this is acceptable to you, but this is not about you anymore. Like, this is about your students. So kind of in a panicked, fit, I came down here because I was running out of time. And
it was a different place back in, what was it, 2011?
2011, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was still kind of a little hood, yeah. And so I remember I played the opening to this building, the Germania building. And so I kind of came with my hat in my hands and said, hey, Kelly, this is what's going on. Can I live here? And she said, well, you can't live here, but it's not zone residential. But we do have this 4th floor. There's the space up there that maybe you can teach your lessons out of. And so she came up here. When I played the opening, I don't even remember there being a 4th floor. And so I came up here and it was just like, it was okay. This is great. The students can live here. Like, this is the waiting room. First time I had a waiting room.
Yeah, I'm just going to describe for people listening, like, it looks like somebody could live here. It's so comfortable.
Yeah. And then, so we signed the lease. That was done. I felt better about that. And then it was, now I just need to find a place for myself to live. And as Allison and I were leaving after we signed the lease, there was a for sale sign at a condo right across the street. I mean, you've been to our house. You've been over there.
I think in all the years I've known you, I haven't been over.
Well, where Half Cut is, right?
Yeah.
Right above that. So we're about...
I didn't realize you guys were like...
Yeah, we're about 50 yards from my bed. So what wound up happening was the studio grew and the community grew and everybody grew because of, at the time, I viewed as a catastrophe. Life had a different view of it. Like, you are panicked right now and this is hurting you because it was scary. But it was really only a few short months that it was like, that I could start to hear the key that, life wanted us to play in. Like, oh, this is cool, and what happened was, for the first time, the students it wasn't coming to my place. Like, I always wanted people to feel at home, like, hey, hang out, let's have a beer, do your thing. But it was always coming to my place. Like, there's ownership there, and a guest they'll just, like, it's in our nature. They're not going to like take over. It would be like me coming to your house and like hanging up pictures.
Which you've done, and it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. So, but here, the art that you see on the walls is by students. The flooring that is here was put in by students. Allison painted the walls, but this entire thing is like, those records that we like in there, those are from students. Everybody, all of the students, like, they were able to stake their little claim because this does not belong to me. Like, the funniest thing is that it says Nicholas Tuttle Guitar Studio. I always laugh at that because that's a name I picked when I was a kid, but it doesn't belong to me. I belong to it. I happen to be a part of it, and I'm the one that locks the door and opens it, but I feel like no bigger or smaller than anybody that comes here. I just happen to sweep the floor.
That puts it all in perspective for me.
Yeah.
Because the coolest thing I thought about coming here when I was starting to take lessons was
how handsome I was.
It was hard to hide my pants tent.
Yeah.
Walking in the first couple of lessons.
But once I finally got a heavy pair of pants, I got comfortable. But how strong the community is and how connected everybody is. I still have friends that I'm in touch with. I'm interviewing Chris later. Yeah. Who I met through you. Yep. Yeah. And when I was starting to think about becoming a teacher myself, I was like, I would want that to be my world, is, have a community full of people who are being creative. And that's like, in my opinion, like there's a lot of good, positive things that happen here for people because of that, and again, that's not I don't think that is a reflection of myself or the silly name that's on the thing. I think it is a reflection of just people. And like when you give people a good environment, or when you give plants proper soil and like the right kind of light, like in my opinion, more good grows than bad. And I think all people need is just like the freedom to let that happen, because I think outside of the studio, Allison's job, for instance, looks stressful sometimes. I know it's stressful, the banking industry and all that stuff, like the pace that life moves outside of these walls is sickeningly fast. And it's nice to just come in here and forget that, time ever existed. Maybe it doesn't. Ooh. The big questions here. Yeah. And so, that's. But it really does feel like I've never felt stressed or urgent inside of this studio. Yeah. It's too comfortable. And it's always been a good place. Like I've jammed here in the waiting room with Enzo and Chris and some of the other students just walking in and out of lessons. Yep. It brings it out of people. And I've never felt so welcome inside of what's supposed to be a business. Yep. Yeah. Not to belabor the point, but to, just I'll reiterate that it wasn't my idea. There was not one part of me, even in like the throes of not being able to live in Matt Adams anymore, there was not a single part of me that was like, oh, maybe this. It was something that I was allowed to observe. That's all. The only thing that I did was I did not stop moving. So to my credit, I put one foot in front of the other and I kept breathing. And I think that's something that a lot of people can do. I remember, and your take on it reminds me, I called you a couple of years ago when I was still living in Austin, and I was feeling just not great about my guitar playing. I was starting out with teaching and playing out more, and I was like, Nick, how do you practice? Like, what do I got to do? And you said something, that kind of tone of, well, I look at it like a yoga practice. I'm listening to my body and asking, what does my playing need? Yeah. That sort of, I hated that answer. I wanted a prescription so badly. Sure, yeah. But it's changing every day. It really is, yeah. The only thing you can do is listen closely. How do your hands feel? Is your shoulder tight? What students are you teaching today? Are they pentatonic players? Are they modal? What gig are you playing tonight? Like, man, my practice changes slightly by the minute, I think, depending on what I need for the evening. So, actually, I was wondering, when you graduated CCM, and the pace of your life and the structure and the deadlines, everything was decided externally for you, what you needed to practice and how to practice it and how much. When you graduated and now you were just Nick Tuttle out in the world, was it kind of hard finding your sea legs again with? No. And again, now that I never thought about it that way, but this story is analogous to the studio moving down here. So I did not graduate from CCM. I did 3 years and decided to leave on my own because I had an opportunity for some work, and I don't know. I don't know. I was just feeling a little bit overwhelmed, maybe, or just that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I couldn't quite put my finger on why there wasn't something there for me to hang my hat on, because I was surrounded by great guitar players. I had a great instructor in Claire Callahan, who's still a good pal of mine. And I had studied with a great teacher who had prepared me for CCM named Rod Stuckey, who's still a good friend of mine and has done master classes down here. So when I left, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I didn't have an idea to play professionally. It was like I was teaching a couple lessons here and there, but I think there is a moment, unfortunately, in every young person's life. When I say young, I mean like between 19 and 26, where you are just going to wander. And I think you have to. And I think that that's what I was doing. I
I worked at a friend of mine named Nicole Torres had convinced me that maybe working at American Airlines would be like a great idea. And so I got a job as a res agent, and I did like the airport, and I love travel. So I thought, okay, I'll work at the.
I can't imagine it.
Oh my God. And so I did that literally for like 5 months. It really only took 5 months of, as soon as I couldn't remember what I had done the day before, I remember there was this moment of honesty of like, oh my God, I really don't remember the last couple days of my life because they're all the same now. I quit that day.
Wow.
The manager's name was Tiffany, and she had big blonde hair, and she was very nice. I did not give my 2 weeks like a good guy. I walked in and I said, hey, I'm really sorry, but this is not going to work for me. So, but in that wandering and in all of that strange experience, I quit because I was certain that I was going back to guitar playing. I was certain that that was the only thing that was going to happen in my life. Whether I was going to be able to feed myself or live in a box, I did not care. It was, this is where I'm going to spend my life. I do not care what it brings me because I'm not looking for anything. I just don't want to spend my minutes in a way that I can't feel.
Actually, I was in exactly the same place a year into accounting. And before I moved to Austin, you called me and you were encouraging me to think about teaching. And
you learn a lot teaching.
And I'd never considered it because I wasn't such a big champion for my talent or whatever skill I had. So I was like, oh, I mean,
which is crazy to me because you're a hell of a guitar player.
I'm more able own what I do. I don't suck.
Especially your out stuff. Your out stuff got so nice. I love like out tonalities and ideas. You can be creative.
Modes are fun.
Yeah. If you can be creative, like in the out tonalities, that's like my most fun thing to listen to. Mm-hmm. I love that.
But when I left accounting, the only thing I could think to do was play guitar because it was the only thing I was thinking about when I should have been putting together statements or doing sample testing or something like that. And I wonder if you sort of felt similar when you left CCM.
I don't know.
Because there's so many demands on you and so many things that you're not deciding, and it seems like you're usually really connected with yourself.
Yeah.
And you can feel and react to it. And if you're going through a situation where you're hearing yourself and feeling a need to react, but still on tracks for something else that might not jive with you.
I'm not sure I was so enlightened as a young guy. Probably not that I am at all now. But I definitely was just like...
I think of you as Colombian Buddha. So enlightened.
I think I was just as like knuckle-headed as any teenage kid, any 20-something-year-old. Yeah, so when I see the 20-somethings kind of struggling and, dropping in and out of school and living with mom, not living with mom, like when I can see that like weariness on their face, I see them in the middle of their path, like my heart goes out to them and I want to comfort them because I know how exhausting it is. But I also understand like you have to complete that. You have to be finished with it. Because if you don't finish it, you'll do it your entire life. You have to wander in total so you can get on with it.
Do you think that's sort of, when we were talking about, trust the universe.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just the process of learning to do it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's just like getting the shot. Like, it's scary. Scrunch up, close your eyes. And then that wasn't so bad, was it? That's a lot of what it feels like for me. Yeah.
Just a lot of experimenting and letting life punch you in the face and then
and I think
the bruise heal.
If you're too, fortunately when we're younger, we're pretty dumb. Like I was just really too stupid to know how good or how bad I was having it. I was just kind of like floating around like a leaf on the wind. I just happened to have some like good experiences. Like CCM, even though I didn't wind up graduating, really was an amazing experience. It was eye-opening, and I learned what it was to practice there. And the facility was amazing. So like the brief time that I was there, like I feel like I gained what I was supposed to gain from there. And it's still like, on a professional level, I think it still has an impact. So I don't know. Would things have been different? Had I stuck out the 4 years and graduated? I don't know. I don't think about that as much anymore just because my professional life is so far along with itself now. Like
you can't really imagine what life would be like on a different...
Oh, gosh. Maybe there's a chance that I wouldn't have become a guitar player. there's a lot of guys that go through music programs and they graduate and then they go and become an accountant. And that's the truth. Mm-hmm. They're listening to this podcast right now. You guys, you're an accountant. You're fifth third right now. Get back to work. Get back to your real work.
Or maybe they just love accounting.
They just fucking love accounting.
Yeah, I was not that guy.
Yeah. But
some of the people I worked with, actually, I felt like their soul was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the most brilliant guitar players that he was a senior when I was a freshman at CCM. His name's Tony Vallis. And he works at Fifth Third now. And I believe he still plays because we use the same luthier. But God, what an amazing, beautiful guitar player. The idea that Tony does anything else with his life is crazy to me. But he does. That's just like, it seems to be working out for him. I think only he can speak to that. Maybe you have him next to interview. Tony Vallis.
Tony Vallis.
Yeah.
Yeah, got me.
Kind of looks like he could be my big brother. He's like black curly hair and God, what a marvelous musician. What a marvelous musician and a cool guy too. Yeah.
I think actually just kind of reminded me, I said to somebody, the closest thing to having a superpower of just walking around and looking like every normal person is being able to just murder an instrument. Nobody can see that in you until you're doing it.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sure.
It's like jumping over buildings or something. If you can pick up and really just knock people's socks off. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's amazing to me that people like that are out there. Because I scrape and fight for every little bit of improvement that I can get. I can't imagine making room in my life for something else and trying to keep doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just an aside, like one more little bit of evidence for me to let the wind blow me around rather than trying to command it was the whole start of me teaching on my own. Really, like the idea that I wouldn't teach anywhere else, I would just teach my own students, came from a car crash. I was on the way home from a gig one night and I was in an accident. I totaled my car. I was fine, but I was without transportation. And I was teaching at an academy across the river called the Slater Music Academy, which I think is still there. Becky Slater. She was really, really cool. And Claire hooked me up with that gig. So I had been teaching for them for a couple years, but it was just like, it was, I think I still taught maybe one or two students out of my house. Like I think a lot of people do. But it was definitely a situation of like, I'm going to be grounded for a while. So anybody that wants to stay should stay, but anybody that wants to come with me can come with me. And so, and I was teaching at another place too. I was teaching in several places, 3 places actually.
She must have been really cool because contracts I'm on would never allow that.
Well, yeah, it was a different time. I'm not sure what I signed. I was teaching at the Slater Music Academy, making music in a place way up in Bethel called TaylorMade Sound, which is not there anymore. So I was actually teaching at TaylorMade Sound while I was at CCM, going back and forth, which was like a lot. I remember there was one day where it started. I started to understand the toll of the work in school when I was so tired. One day I pulled over, and on the way to TaylorMade Sound, I pulled over in a school parking lot to sleep for 40 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm doing this wrong. Yeah, but anyhow, without transportation, that's how that started. It just kind of
forced you into a situation.
Yeah, it just kind of turned into. I think it just kind of turned into itself. Because again, I would never have an idea of, I think I can do this thing. Like I'm going to teach, my students are going to come to me, and it's going to be my private thing. That was still never an idea. It was
never that decisive. It was just sort of,
it wasn't even a thing that I had thought about. It just kind of started happening. And then, hence the dumb name, Nicholas Tuttle Guitar Studio. Like, it wasn't something that...
I couldn't come up with anything better when I started doing this Nate Newman Guitar Studio.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I was trying to create. It was something that was being created for me. And maybe I didn't get out of the way fast enough. And then God was like, boom, car crash. And not one that you're going to want to drive a car, for a couple weeks. So I think if you... in all the improvisational art that we love, if you can get out of the way of yourself and just let it be what it wants to be, I think you'll think it's beautiful and just enjoy it. And then other people might enjoy it too. Whether that's like beautiful painting or like a wonderful night of music, there's a lot to be enjoyed. You just have to stop thinking about it, or stop thinking that your idea is somehow going to be better than whatever is out there for us. Like whatever that thing is that is guiding us. your thoughts do not compare to his or hers or whatever.
I really don't believe that there's such thing as a my idea or a your idea. Is that just kind of artificial?
Like the clitoris.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not a real thing.
They keep
it doesn't
talking,
exist.
They keep talking about it. It's not there.
I looked. I found it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We can edit that out.
Still looking. I was just looking at the time to see how we're going. Speaking of a leaf blowing in the wind and not trying to control it, getting back to practical things.
Sure.
You turned me onto a lot of different apps like iReal Pro,
yeah, sure.
Funk Drummer, all these different things. Do you still experiment with a lot of these?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yep.
What's new in your life?
I use Drum Genius a lot. I like that one. Did I tell you about that app? It's an Italian guy makes it, and he went and found all of these. I guess they would be DAT tapes of drum sessions. So you can play with real drummers, like you can play with Ringo Starr on the Let It Be recordings. He's got the guy from the Meters on there. I think like Elvin Jones is on there. Just like all the guys you want to play with, and kind of experience their feel. So it's like, yeah, and you can control the tempo. It doesn't have a tap tempo. I wish it did, but I really like that one a lot. There's a really neat drum app called Patterning from the Olympia. I think it's the Olympia Music Company, and it's like drum sequencing, but it's circular, so it's not like a grid. So it
comes back to the beginning.
Yeah, and so it's a different way of looking at the sequence, and it I think that helps. Just looking at something different, I think that helps with the creative side of it.
Yeah. Do you? You're not a drummer, are you? I think.
No, I would be a horrible drummer. I think I'm serviceable now, only because I spend so much time with the metronome, and I've recently been playing just lots of bass. And so I realized how square my feel is. And so I'm trying. I have some students that it's funny. Again, so there it is. I don't teach bass. I really don't. But I have students that insist that I do. I say, look, I'm not a bass teacher. Well, I have a bass and I want to study here. So I'm like, shit, okay.
If you taught bass, you teach bass.
Yeah. And so
it's you got to tell people sometimes. It's I don't know if I play guitar. Do you play guitar? It's are you playing the guitar? If you played guitar, you play guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting a little better at it, but man, it is really a long journey. And so I realize how much power the bass has. Man, you as the bass player,
change the room.
You change the room. Yeah, you control the pocket. You can congest the pocket. You can lay out. You have so much power of the attitude. It's
and it's the hardest thing to learn if you're not a musician. Getting into it is learning to play with the beat, but then learning to play around the beat is where a lot of that really groovy stuff is happening. Yeah, it's
you're the super ego of the band. You control. It's its attitude, wants, and what it's going to feel like. All this time I thought it was the drummer, and I think that there
are drummers like that. Yeah,
but to me, man, there's so much power in just kind of pulling on that malleable thing, the malleable pocket, pushing on it a little and then pulling on it a little, congesting. I don't think that drummers can do it in the same way without raising some eyebrows, but the bass player can kind of mess around with it and really have a massive effect. Sometimes the drummer just kind of has to sit in the pocket and be musical, especially if he's playing with, a bunch of retarded guitar players that are,
actually
their time.
The exact example of a song that I want to show you is, I think it's Freddie King.
Mm-hmm. Freddie's the man.
Freddie's the man, but
tell me it's Big Leg Woman. Big Leg Woman.
I don't think it's Big Leg Woman, but it just sounds like a freight train, and the bass player is playing totally straight. Everybody's playing,
and I believe that's his brother. The bass player is his brother.
Really, it's really amazing, but all the intrigue of it comes from the drummer. Because he's just doing a pretty basic beat, but it's off by a 30-second note or something. It makes you kind of rock your head. But I got to show you here, man. Freddie King. Let's see. I wonder if it's going down. Yep.
It's no wonder the Englishmen love this stuff so much. The Three Kings, right?
Yeah.
And that would, of course, that's the only thing that you would do with a magnetic pickup. Why would you do something else?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like guys like Jimmy Page and...
I mean, you give somebody a car and an expansive space to roll around in it. Eventually, the pedal will go all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page tells a story about, them huddling around BBC radio at like midnight because that's when it would tick over and they would start playing like American blues. And if you're hearing stuff like that, and the solid body electric guitar, like the Strat is, what was it, 62, 64?
Oh, earlier than that.
Telly's 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Telly's 1950s. So like that thing was brand new. And you heard that, you're like, well, yeah, obviously that's the path. That's what it's supposed to sound like.
That's what they're for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's active pickups, which are designed to almost blow your amp up.
I mean, when I hear that, when I hear Freddie King, I still have that feeling of like, why would you do anything else with that thing? I mean, people figured it out, but damn, that's good.
Eventually they figured it out, but I think Muddy Waters at first was just playing acoustics and stuck some sort of aftermarket pickup on it.
Muddy Waters?
Yeah.
Never heard of the guy.
I think he was a Rolling Stones cover band or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a fishing company.
Yeah.
Right? Muddy Waters?
Muddy Waters, boots. I think they made boots. But no, he had stuck this aftermarket pickup on it, and then just the volume got turned up more and more, and something cool is happening, I
wonder if it started to probably started to overdrive a little bit.
I'm sure that's how people discovered it.
A little dirty.
Yeah.
And before I forget to say it, another word about drumming and drummers and like time and rhythmic tempo. Like time to me is, as a guitar instructor, lots of moms and dads are like, what do I do to get my kids into music? What's the first thing that I should do? What's the first instrument?
Like there's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell them that the first thing to do is like start cultivating time. And that is like, like in things like kinder music and things like that. Yeah. You have them stomping around.
In a rhythm.
Oh yeah. And, for instance of this, there are a couple of my favorite musicians that just happen to live here in town. And I think you've met John Gentry because he's done a masterclass here a couple times. He does one a year here at the studio.
Yeah, he's
long dreads.
Yeah, massively talented guy.
Oh my God.
I had a guitar teacher down in Austin who said, "Oh, you lived in Cincinnati? Do you know John Gentry?"
Oh yeah,
yeah.
John is well known, man. And so there was, we'll have to do a whole nother podcast on how John's one of my favorite people, one of my favorite musicians. Has had a huge influence on what I think is musical and what I think is cool. But I had the good fortune to become pals with him when I was in my 20s, and I would play in a group, and we had like a Wednesday jam, and he would stop down sometimes after his gig, and he'd have his guitar with him, and so we got to start jamming together, which was super exciting to me because I was aware of his playing and listening to his stuff when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old. The short story is when I was doing preparatory stuff at CCM, I was like 14. I would go and like walk around Clifton, like in between classes. And there was a club there called Ripley's Alive. And I saw John, this dude with red dreads all the way down to his ass, playing a guitar that I didn't know what the hell it looked like. And it was this trio that were sound checking. And there was this rumble and this strange color of harmony that was coming from them that it was so like alien to me, but also felt like the thing that I was missing in my life. Like, man, this is what music is. What in the heck is this? So that's really where like my interest in like any kind of like jazz harmony or study or swing, it really came from that moment. It really did. And all of these years later, I could describe what I was hearing as like equal parts SRV, equal parts Thelonious Monk. So if you could imagine what that sounds like, that rumble, but that strange tonality, that's what John was doing in the Lemmings. That was that group at the time, in my opinion. You might say that there's more Zappa in there, but that's all I could hear at the moment. And so,
and you're a very funky guy that way. That there's all of these. There's a lot of stank in your style with the jazz and all these colored harmonies and a big rock bite to it.
Yeah. Well, and just to wrap up that little bit of part of the story, I got to start jamming with John, and at that Wednesday gig. And one night, a slower night, the drummer Brian Stevenson, shout out Brian Stevenson, great drummer. was just like taking a break. And so John put his guitar down and he got behind the kit and he started playing in a way that like the best jazz drummers want to play, like with like real independence, not like, you know, playing an actual beautiful kit, like a beautiful line and a beautiful feel. And I was just like, what in the hell are you doing, man? And he's like, oh yeah, drums were my first instrument. And
that's like kind of the case with all of these crazy, beautiful guitar players.
Feel came first.
Feel came first. Yeah, I mean, really, there's no instrument but the drums. Like
Tommy Emmanuel,
yeah,
great drummer. Drums came first to a lot of my favorite musicians.
I try to just drive it home as much as I can with kids because time and feel is the last thing that they can really get together.
Yeah.
But
there's a guy down the street, Erwin Stuckey, who's a pal of mine. He's head of jazz studies at SCPA, and he's a hell of a piano player, a hell of a singer, and a hell of a vibes player. And I would go and watch him at a club in Covington years ago. He had a group called the Great American Trio or something like that. Wonderful dude. Same deal. One night, it was a slow night. His drummer had a new kit there. It was a Sonar kit. He wanted to try it out. He got behind that thing. And he was, to use your phrase, he was murdering it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So I asked him, I was like, man, what's happening? And he's like, oh yeah, drums are my first instrument. So the musicians that I truly love and love to hear play, that I am like in love with, that answer is so consistent, it's unnerving. Drums were my first instrument.
Yeah.
Rhythm.
Trey,
tempo.
Jack White.
Trey Anastasio was a drummer first?
Oh, yeah.
You're kidding.
No.
Oh, my God. Well, yeah, so there it is. They were cultivating tempo first. That's like walk before you run, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, I trip over my shoelaces when I try to walk now. But no, there's things that you can do, but I feel like I'm working backwards now. That there's exercises where I try to start on just a 30-second note after the one to try to play behind the beat and then in front of it.
There's a great exercise that is dating. You could date a Hispanic girl. Oh, you're doing that.
I try that a lot, honestly. Yeah.
That's got to do a lot for your time. Honorary brown person.
Yeah. There's some chocolate in me somewhere.
That's going to be our next side project. We'll call it chocolate in me somewhere.
Oh, that's going in the band name list.
Yep. We'll do only funk stuff, but like on acoustic instruments, really sensibly and straight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're going to fuse Baroque and funk. You heard it here.
There's like, you hear it. There's some chocolate in there.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, but the time is just the biggest thing, and
it is the biggest thing.
People neglect it.
Yes.
I think it's because it's foundational.
It's harder to get a hold of too. Like nowadays, it's like maybe primitive man. It was like, you know, you're beating on a rock with a stick was a little bit more accepted. But nowadays, especially in America, kids are like, you know, mom and dad are going to make me take piano, and I hate that, which is a shame because it's a percussive instrument. And like the students that I have,
it's fun to bang on it. Yeah,
that were good pianists when they were kids. They have that thing. Like, man, your time is so good. You just happen to have like, you know, a really great knowledge of harmony and stuff too, because of all the time that you spend on the piano. But you know, you're hitting things with hammers in there. That's
well, yeah. Music is decorating time.
Oh, that's a great way to say that.
Not mine, and I can't take credit for it, but it makes sense. Is, you know, one thing happens after the other. Mm-hmm. A sound happens after the other. Mm-hmm. And if that's all music really is, how is time not the most important part? Mm-hmm. But I was getting back to melody. I think people are just attracted to that because that's how people are built. That's the higher frequencies. Those are the ones that we're able to hear the best. Mm-hmm. That's how the human ear is. But you have to, if you want to even learn a song, you have to get down to what the foundation is. And that's all going to be in the bass and in the rhythm. Mm-hmm. So people don't really look for that because it's not the thing they hear the most easily. Yeah.
And the guitar player gets more girls. You know what I'm saying? Like,
supposedly, I keep hearing that. But
I think it's how we musically develop, in particular here in the United States. I think it's like it's a little bit backwards. Maybe it was different once upon a time. But drums are not an easy instrument to start on, obviously, because mom and dad, they don't want you to do it. No matter how much they love you, nobody wants to hear their kid on a kit.
No.
Until they get good, which takes freaking years.
Electronic kits. Yeah. That's the only one I have because I was living in apartments and stuff.
Yeah. But guitar is portable. It's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can turn down the amp if you want. Drums you cannot turn down, and you're going to spend more money. You know what I'm saying? Cajones are kind of making a small comeback. Like
cajones are great.
You know, everybody has a cajon, and kids like playing those, and it's kind of, that's like a sketch of a drum kit.
Yeah. Oh, describe what a cajon is for people who don't know.
A cajon is a little brown box. I mean, just imagine a box. What is that? About 1.5 feet high, 2 feet high, foot wide. It's just a crate, and you sit on it and you bang on the front. And it's a South American instrument. It's used a lot in flamenco music now, but it is, in particular, I think it's Chilean, because there was slavery in South America as well. When you were a slave in South America, you worked not in fields, but on docks, like working on boats and stuff like that, carrying sugars and exports, fruits and things like that. So your crate is your instrument because you don't have anything else. And so these guys would sit and they would play rhythms on this that just was always there. So the Peruvian masters, their cajones, they didn't have the snaring. They don't have a snaring in it. That didn't happen until the cajon traveled to Spain. And the cajon didn't travel to Spain until like 1971. Paco de Lucia, the guitar player. I
was going to say, it's like you hear cajon all over
flamenco, that. Yeah. It did not until the 70s. So he came, he toured South America, he saw the Peruvian masters and was like, ooh, that is going to sound amazing with flamenco music. So he took it back.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and guess what? It sounds amazing with flamenco music. Paco de Lucia probably knew nothing. He was I don't even know who he is. No, I'm kidding. He was amazing. A big influence. So yeah, that's the story of the cajon.
Yeah. And they're very affordable.
Very.
And they take up less space than a drum kit.
The cheaper the better. It kind of like my little Pearl cajon is like $90 and it sounds great. My Meinl, this $400 cajon, is like, sounds too pretty. It sounds great, and I'm sure some people like it, but most people gravitate towards my little cheeky Pearl because it's like darker sounding. You know what I mean, man? I like the dark stuff.
All about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're talking about there's some darkness in you somewhere.
Yep. Chocolate in there somewhere.
Chocolate in there somewhere. But no, like...
There's chocolate in them dark hills.
No, but, the veneer of a happy person on the outside and then connecting with whatever is going on the inside with songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you bring that up because I have a friend that is a psychologist, and I have great conversations with her about Carl Jung. She likes Carl Jung. And
he's the archetypes guy, right?
Yeah, you know about him?
I know some things.
And she was telling me about one of his theories, which is called shadow theory. Like that, you're not separated from the darker parts of you. It is a part of you, but it's not one that you know how to negotiate with very well, or that side of you doesn't know how to communicate very well. And so it's the idea of maybe getting to a point where you can understand that side of yourself as well. Not extricated, not evicted, because that's impossible.
No, we're animals. Like murder happens because people are designed to get angry when things happen. And if you live in society, and you shouldn't murder people, I'm not an advocate for that.
Yeah.
But
he's being honest, folks. He has an honest look at his face right now.
I totally never murder people.
Ever.
Do
you have 2 shovels, by the way, and some? Okay.
And do you know where an iron smelting facility might be?
I know a guy with a pig farm up north.
Oh, cool.
All right. We're so dumb.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we are though. But no, we're animals, and we're somehow in this civilization with laws and other people and learning to respect the reality and everybody else. But there's still the shadow in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, it never occurs to them that the shadow is there for everybody because this is their reality, and civilization has been their reality their entire lives. And it's like, why am I having these messed up thoughts?
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what this whole thing is, this music thing, this art thing. You were saying at the top of the interview, the podcast, that it's a solitary thing. You spend so much time with your own thoughts, and you remember I said that I think that this is you trying to communicate with yourself. You know, that maybe this is the way that you start that dialogue with the darker parts of you and hopefully the happier, lovelier parts of you. It's just a way to know yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, it's very honest.
Yeah. You're attracted to dark music. Be attracted to dark music. That's the dumbest thing that I hear is like when people say, "Why don't you play any happy songs?" And like, I do play happy songs because that's my gig. I have to.
Mm-hmm. But that's not the only emotion there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my parking.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave for that in 2 minutes. I was gonna say is
So you have to obey that appetite.
You do, and I remember when was first learning guitar, and I was with my my teacher, and he taught me the pentatonic scale. We started working on soloing. When I started playing, I was blushing. I was embarrassed. And this happened for years afterward.
Embarrassed by your improvisational stuff? Yeah,
well, I couldn't for some reason get used to the idea of creating something that was purely from me in front of people, and then having it just judged and taken in on the spot.
Well, so not to sound too crunchy, but that part is embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think maybe what people are experiencing when they get, like when Trey Anastasio says when he has a great night when he's out of the way of his own music, it probably doesn't feel like he did create it. It feels like it was maybe created from somebody else, from somewhere else, and that he just got to be witness to it and to enjoy it.
But losing that, you have to give Trey's credit, and any musician who's skilled is they put in the time so that their body knows how to do that.
Yeah, it's my favorite guy, John McLaughlin. What he says about practicing, it was actually in a commencement speech he was giving at the Berklee School of Music, but in Valencia. Mm-hmm. And I'll paraphrase because it's been a while since I've watched it. And he was talking about, and this is a room full of grad students, mind you, so they know how to practice. He was talking about the muse and creativity, trying to disabuse them of the notion that, you practice 4 to 6 hours a day. And then at the end of your time at this school, you'd like to cash all of these practice hours in, and that will equal a great night of creativity. And he was stressing to them that is not how this works. That is not why you practice. You do not practice for your shiny token of, look at that great musical thing that I did, because that token is not guaranteed to anybody. What he was trying to say was you practice in a devotional way. Like you keep your body, just like in the martial arts, like you keep your body in good shape, in case you need it. He was saying, you practice like that. You keep your musical self healthy to where if the muse does happen to arrive, if it does come and he says it sits on your shoulder,
then you're a worthy conduit.
You're a worthy conduit. And he said that you can stay with it for as long as it will allow you. It's a little bit like running next to a train where there's that moment where you feel like you're with it. And, it eventually will leave, but you can stay with it as long as you can and then hope that it comes back. And then he said that the muse has only visited him once every couple years.
Yeah,
there's a lot of evidence that it.
But Armageddon, oh my God, that's all the accomplishment that you need for a lifetime.
Armageddon?
His, I believe that's one of his 70s projects, right?
I don't remember. So there was the
Mahivishnu Orchestra.
Well, before that, he played with Miles too,
right?
On in a silent way.
I think it was right after Miles
and Jack Johnson, Mahivishnu, and then Shakti. The Shakti stuff is my favorite stuff.
I might be completely mixing him up with somebody else, but I saw John McLaughlin and
live
and Jimmy Herring, in Austin.
The Meeting of Souls. You got to see it?
It was so cool.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, but there were songs in there that sounded like what Armageddon would have felt like. Yeah.
John, he's almost there. He just needs to practice a little bit more. I'm kidding. He's okay.
He's almost there.
Every time he says something musically, it jives with me, and every time he says something spiritually, it jives with me. I just think that his music has been a good guide, and his words have been a good guide for me always.
Were you always an improviser?
No, because in classical music, you don't improvise. That's
what I was getting at earlier when I was describing your style. Yeah, well, you're not a classical guy.
No, not anymore. There was a time in my life that my repertoire was really just classical, which is wild to think about. That idea to me feels like kind of handcuffing, because my favorite thing to do is improvise, and I love talking about improvisation and different theories, different colors, different approaches. I love, I don't know, improvisation is like is somebody's true self when you get to like jam with them. Everybody has like their thumbprint, and it's all so different. Even if you studied at the same school, like two of the guys I love here in Cincinnati, there's Brandon Scott Coleman, who's a wonderful guitar player from Kentucky, and Bob Ross. And they, Bob Ross.
I was going to ask.
Guitar player. They went to the same school. They graduated, I think, close to the same year, but they are very different guitar players. Very different, and I love both of their touches. But you'd think that there would be an element of like some kind of manufacturing there, like, oh, you must have studied with X, Y, and Z, but you don't feel that in improvisation. I think you feel that a little bit more in classical studies,
or composition.
Yeah, but in improvisation, it's like, man, no matter who helped you form yourself, if you want to say it that way, you are going to play like yourself no matter what, and that is freaking awesome. Talking to people, getting to know people sometimes is super great. Sometimes it's hard because it takes them a while to relax. It takes them a while to, like, I don't know,
get weird with you.
Yeah, it takes them a while to get weird with you. And but in improvisation, it's immediate. There's only that one language, which is like, whatever's inside you.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Yeah.
On this note, I have to run and go pay for my parking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right back here.
Welcome back. And so, viewers, right now Nate's covered in rain. He has rain on his glasses. You look like you've been through a car wash.
Kind of have.
Epic.
Yeah, it's the first shower I've had in a while.
Showers are a lie. They're a lie.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just what the lizard people want you to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have to do more of these. This is fun.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah, we were talking about doing a group one with Chris at some point.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be so much fun.
Yep.
But I hope all the rest of these episodes are as easy and fun, because this was the first one. It felt totally natural. I'm
sure it's going to be a learning experience and talking to people too. Like learning to play different instruments. Like everybody has.
There's a different cadence, yeah.
Well, and personalities, right? Like when people are like, hey, what guitar do I need for this, and what guitar do I need for that? And really the answer is all of them. And I'm just like, let's get them all.
Yeah.
Like Les Pauls, for instance, have such a personality type that they really just want to be played like a Les Paul. They want Les Paul lines and Les Paul tone, and if you don't obey that, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Boy, you're trying to play it like a Telly, yeah.
Swimming upstream. I have a similar experience with Strats. Like there's a personality type there where they're kind of leading you around. But Telecasters, like the Telly body, there's such like a vagueness there. It's almost like a Rorschach, like that your creativity just kind of pours over it, and it's not telling you anything. It's just like freshly fallen snow that you just really like, you get to run around on it and explore with it with no like musical consequence. It is the true, Tellys are the true multi-tool that like, it's good to explore your musical self. You can play country gigs with them. A lot of great jazz guitar players play Telly. Love Tellys, man. Damn.
That was a beautiful description of something I totally don't fucking agree with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hear a Telly, I'm like, that's a Telly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What about well, let's see. I'll have to think of some players that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send me some names. I'll get into it. But
there's this Telly player from Canada that Evan listens to. He's a wonderful finger stylist. I'm trying to think of what his name is. It'll come to me. But to me, it's not all like. Oh, Bill Frisell is a really good example. Like the way that Bill Frisell, and for that matter, a local guy who's a wonderful player, Rich Radinsky, the way that they play their Tellys, it doesn't even sound like a guitar to me sometimes. It just sounds like some frequency from space. Like when listening to Bill Frisell and Rich Radinsky would not identify it as a Telecaster. It is just like just your soul resonating with whatever they're doing. And they could probably get that sound out of any instrument or contraption that they could get their hands on, because they're wonderful musicians, but Telly is their weapon of choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm open-minded.
Yeah.
If that actually exists.
I think you'll love Bill Frisell.
Yeah.
And Rich.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get to your bike shop.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's the thing, man. So if people wanted to get in touch with you or see cool stuff that you do, how should they do that?
I have a website, just nicktuttle.com. And you can send me an email, and I try to get to like my messages and stuff like that. I'm not the fastest. On Facebook, we have a Nicholas Tuttle Guitar Studio page that you can like, where I broadcast the master classes when I can. Any events that we have down here, I try to put on there. Like, for instance, we have La Novena, December 21st, which is like a Christmas party, but Colombian style. My mom's going to come and do some reading and stuff like that. And Marcus Carr and DJ April Rain, DJ Tree, they're going to DJ for us. It's going to be a good time. So I don't know if this is going to be aired before that, but if so, it is open to the public. If you're in town, you should come. But yeah, but also just, if you like pot pie, that still works for me too.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're awesome.
Oh,
your mom's awesome. Yeah. Mom.
All right.
Gross.
This is the last interview, bud. That group interview is never going to happen.
All
right, man.
Why are mom jokes still so funny?
They're so good. Yeah, I don't know. Because everybody has a mom.
Oh, man, you just cracked it open for me. You just blew my mind.
Yeah. There you go.
Love you, man.
All right. On that note, love you too.
Yep.
And love everybody at home.
Hey, I'm still here. Thanks for listening. And if you love the show, please go onto iTunes and leave a review. It helps much more than just leaving a rating. It's a way that you can directly help the show, and that's going to help us keep getting good guests and putting out good content for all of y'all. So if you love us as much as we love you, please go ahead and just say one nice thing about us. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be able to sit down with these people and talk about excellence and pursuing excellence. And I love that I can provide it for anybody who's interested. So if you'd like to hear more, this is a very simple way that you can help support the show. Anyway, thanks again. Appreciate you. Take care of yourselves. Bye.